put a mag or two down the range just to say goodbye to the engineer of the modern firearm, Gaston Glock. Now, folks, you're watching Deuce. Today is a little more somber of an intro for my normal videos because we have lost a pioneer in the firearms industry, Gaston Glock. Gaston Glock, of course, known for the Glock firearm. He passed away at the ripe old age of 94 today. Hopefully I get this video up in time to celebrate his life this weekend. I hope so. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about his life beginning to end and what he contributed to the firearms community, because it is a lot that he contributed to the firearms community. Gaston Glock was born on July 19th, 1929 in Austria. He pretty much stayed in Austria his entire life, and that's where the Glock was born as well. Against popular belief, Gaston Glock did not come out of the womb designing firearms. He actually had no interest in developing firearms or firearms manufacturing until much later in his career. He started out going to schooling and all that good stuff, and then became an engineer specializing in polymers and plastics and basically synthetic structural materials. That's what he's looking for. He's looking for hard synthetic structural polymers to utilize for different tooling and things of that nature. Basically, he was looking at the next generation of Bakelite. Fast forward to about 1980, and Gaston Glock found that Austria was looking to replace their military's aging P38 pistols. They had upgraded a little bit to the P1, which has the aluminum frame, which is lighter and a little bit easier to mill out in the manufacturing process, but it's still the exact same design, which is super complicated to make and super complicated to maintain because it has multiple recoil springs. There's all kinds of gadgets and gizmos and levers and everything going on here. This is a complicated gun. Is it a nice gun to shoot? Yes, it is. But it is complicated, overly complicated, aka German. So all the big boys showed up for that sweet pistol contract from the government because that's cha-ching, cha-ching, that's where you make your money as a firearms manufacturer. And Glock saw that and said, I can do that. I have a completely different thought process and manufacturing idea for firearms. And he developed the Glock 17. The Glock 17 is a very simple design. It has very few moving parts. The tolerances inside do not have to be that exact, so it's even fast to manufacture. And the frame here is polymer. It's basically a plastic, a very good high quality plastic, but still just a plastic. And because of the quality of the polymer here, it makes the pistol both lightweight and durable. One thing that Glock did not design was the tilting barrel. If you look at the barrel there, it tilts down there. As it unlocks, it tilts down, and that barrel kind of points up there to help load the next round. That is a John Moses Browning design, which comes from the 1911. Again, unloaded. And you'll see here the 1911 barrel also tilts down as it unlocks. You see that right there? It tilts down just slightly, and that allows the slide to move back and for the next round to be chambered into the barrel. Basically, Glock recognized the genius of the Browning tilting barrel design and stuck with it. One of the things that Glock did not take from the 1911 is the hammer. So many pistols back then still had an old style hammer back here behind the slide. Glock didn't like that because it's an extra expense, it's an extra failure point, and it's an extra complication to the manufacturing process. So he made it a striker fired pistol. There's a big spring in here and a firing pin being held back. And when you pull that trigger, it lowers down a pawl that is called a sear, and it lets that firing pin fly forward, hitting the primer on the cartridge, firing the pistol. Now, Glock did not invent the striker fire design. That design goes back over 100 years. The very first Mosin Nagant was striker fired. Also, the early Swiss rifles, also striker fired. But he was the first one to really utilize that into a common military pistol. Again, Glock was not interested in reinventing the wheel when he didn't have to. He used a Browning design for the barrel, and he used a striker fire design from many, many firearm designs in the past. He just utilized them all in a very compact, simple package with a polymer frame. In 1982, Glock won the Austrian military contract for the pistols with the Glock 17. Hindsight being 2020, of course they did, because it's a fantastic design that was leaps and bounds better than anything else available at the time. And legend has it that while he was right-handed, he tested his firearms left-handed, so then if he did blow a gun up and lose his hand, he lost his non-dominant hand. At the end of the day, he was still an engineer, mathematically minded, knowing that, yes, he engineered everything very, very well, but still, there's always a chance. And he wanted to make sure he could still write his own name. The military contract was the basis that he took to basically take the industry to the next level. And that's when he started working with different law enforcement agencies around the world. For probably 15, 20 years, every single police department in the United States had a Glock on the force. Now you're seeing some SIGs and Smith & Wessons on there, but it's still very common to find a Glock in the holster of a police officer. Now, with the Glock design being so successful, it was just a matter of time before other firearms manufacturers jumped on that bandwagon. And the very first firearm I came across that I liked that had a polymer frame is this one right here. I bought this in either 1999 or 2000. It's a European American Armory Witness. It's chambered in 45 ACP, and it has a polymer frame. Other than the frame being polymer, this pistol has no other resemblance to a Glock. It's hammer fired, and the frame or the slide is set down into the frame like a CZ75. It's basically a CZ75 chambered in 45 ACP and has a polymer frame to it, but is a great shooter. And a few years later, Smith & Wesson also got on the bandwagon and created the Smith & Wesson Sigma. The Sigma pistol is a decent pistol, but unfortunately it was so close to the Glock design, Glock sued them and won. So Smith & Wesson had to redesign the internals. The externals pretty much stayed exactly the same, but they redesigned the internals and they came up with a much crappier trigger design, which is how you know if you have the old one or new one is how crappy that trigger is. Once that lawsuit was concluded, Smith & Wesson went back to the drawing board and came up with their very excellent M&P style pistol, which is in every measurable way better than this pistol. In July of 1999, Gaston Glock started to suspect his financial advisor of embezzling funds from the company. But before he could really put together the ins and outs of the investigation, the person that was doing the embezzling hired a hitman to take out Mr. Glock. The weird thing is that hitman went after Mr. Glock with a rubber hammer. Who uses a rubber hammer? That's so bizarre. And because of the poor choice of armament there, Gaston Glock was able to fight off his attacker, and they both went to jail for embezzlement and assault and etc., etc., etc. To even better support the idea that the Glock design is a fantastic design is how much it's copied by both other manufacturers and by people in general. I mean, we have the P80 lower. These are everywhere and they're easy to manufacture yourself in your own basement or bunker. You have 3D printed Glocks right there. There's not a bit of Glock in this Glock, yet it functions just fine because of the design. The design is rock solid, easy to manufacture, easy to assemble, and inexpensive to make. If you show up to a pistol competition, well, I'm way zoomed in, hold on a second, there we go. If you show up to a pistol competition, you're gonna find a lot of average Joes like me shooting either a Glock 34 or a Canic of some sort, either a Canic Meta or a Canic Rival. And they're very similar as far as Glock designs go. It's a polymer frame. It has the Browning tilting barrel, as you can see right there, and the slide wraps over the frame onto the frame rails, just like a Glock. It is really something to think about. Gaston Glock came up with a design for a firearm in about 1980. That was the Glock 17. And the firearms industry, the millions and billions of dollars in firearms development over the decades, they really didn't catch up to his engineering designs until about 2015. That's incredible. If you have a chance this weekend, go ahead and grab your own Glock, go down to the range, and put a mag or two down the range just to say goodbye to the engineer of the modern firearm, Gaston Glock. Well guys, that's it for me today. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a like and go subscribe because I got a lot more of this on the way. If you have any comments, questions, show what it is, or anecdotes about your very own Glock firearm experience, go Go ahead and put that down in the comments below, and I'll try to answer as many of those as possible. And as always, you guys have a great day. See ya.